Hello. I'm making a video in the evening and it's really nice here. I'm here leaning against the ivy and next to me I have my self-made pond. This is my self-made pond. I filled the wheelbarrow with water and I dip my feet and my entire calf into them. And the water is cold, but it's very refreshing. And I hang my legs in there 3 times per day, soak my feet in it, and particularly my calf muscle that I had developed this strange sensation in my right calf muscle on the side, like from the knee all the way to the ankle, all the way on the side, on the right side of that muscle, and that goes all the way down that muscle. And when I had the sciatic leg nerve pain, that muscle felt like it had come out of a freezer or something. That was a very weird sensation. It was painful also. It was like my leg felt like on ice, and it felt so painful. And then I had the pain in the sciatic area of the lower, like the absolute lowest tip of the spinal cord. I don't know how that's called, but there is the sciatic leg nerve bundle in there that goes from the spinal cord into... No, I'm making a video. I told you. So that routes the nerve sensation through the spinal cord with axons. Axons are the electric cords of our nerve cells, and these axons, they're very long. Some of them are very long. I think like a kilometer long or something. That's more than a mile, I think. Amazing. So and they are surrounded by a rubber, almost like an electric cord, so that it doesn't short out, it doesn't cause nerve interference. So that's why it is surrounded with almost something like a rubber, but it is a fat shield that is surrounding it. And this fat shield consists of Schwann cells. Schwann, that was the biologist who discovered that. And so they named it after him. Schwann cells that are wrapping themselves around the axon of a neuron, so to protect it. And then it goes all the way through the tip of the spinal cord into both legs. And that junction is called the sciatic leg nerve bundle junction. And then from there it goes into the legs, and from the legs it goes back up through the spinal column all the way into our brain. Okay, routed into the brain, and then it's being translated in the brain into a sensation, whether that is a positive sensation of hanging the legs into water, or it's pain, and that's what I had last year in October and November. It was very bad. That must have been a very strange vortex of energy that came through the earth, because I'm very sensitive to those kind of things. Energy vortices, as they call them in plural. So, and the same happened to me in October 2012. there was an energy vortex coming through that was very, very intense. That caused me a nervous breakdown and a psychotic episode that was very, very, very severe with extreme panic attack. It was a psychotic panic attack. That's what it was. You know, people always, they have their names for these kind of things, psychosis and stuff like this. But these kind of things, they don't come from nowhere, obviously. So if I have paranoia, if I have psychosis, if I have panic, if I have a phobia, all of this has started somewhere. All of this has started with trauma, with pain, with associations, with trying to escape routes, OCD, hand washing, you know, paranoia of particles and all of these types of things. So, and when we introspect and when we do a lot of work on ourselves, then we can move forward and we can look back and we can feel compassion for ourselves. We can cry and we can feel pity, and the next day we can laugh about it. We can laugh about ourselves, but in a loving way, okay? And that is the best humor in the world, when we can laugh about ourselves in a loving way, not in an impatient way or in a self-deprecating way, but in a joking type of emotion that's full of empathy for ourselves, for our own bodies, for our own minds, okay? And that's wellness, that's healing, that's when we are healing, making progress, that's when we are moving forward with our psychological work that we do on ourselves. So, very important, that psychological work, very, very important to move forward, to heal, and to be able to feel joy again, and to be able to laugh again, and all of this without substances, okay? All of that without numbing substances or pain medication or drugs or of any sort, okay? So without any stimulant, without any type of narcotic or alcohol or yikes, I have such OCD with all of these things. I don't even like saying these words because they come from a psychopathology, obviously, you know. If people were not mentally ill, there would be no need for street drugs or any of these substances. There would be no need for caffeine or any of these things. The reason why people take this kind of stuff is because they are not well. Okay, that is the reason. They're not doing well. They're not doing well psychologically. They don't sleep well at night. They're like zombies during the day. They feel like they need to put a stimulant in, like caffeine, in order to make it through the day. And they live in an abhorrent life cycle of neurosis, dependency on the job, enslavement to the corporation, enslavement to society's norms, and all of this could be dissolved in a heartbeat, okay? All of this you could be done with all of that, okay? Without being bitter, okay? Everyone gets bitter sometimes, okay? But don't stay stuck in bitterness. That's not good, okay? Then that's mental illness, of course. I get bitter sometimes. I have written angry, bitter letters. I have been very angry at people. I've been extremely criticizing society, and sometimes I'm bitter about it. But I don't want to stay stuck in those emotions, okay? I want to heal. I want to come back out. I want to move forward with my mind and not stay stuck with something that is. I have to lean this computer on my thigh because I can't hold it up all the time. That kind of hurts my muscle here in the shoulder. But I like the way this looks here with the ivy. I really like this. It's nice. It's real pretty. But I wanted to do a follow-up video from last night when I was talking about the shame that people feel and this dependency on what other people think of them and this enslavement to society and all of this, and how we could easily dissolve that and heal all of this. But it would require complete inwardness meditation, okay, where we let off other people's opinions, where we let off society and what anyone thinks, your children, what your children think of you, your husband, your sister, brother, parents, aunts, uncles, society, friends, teachers. Of course we want to have good grades, but you have to work for those good grades. You can't just flirt with the teacher and then expect to get an A. So it doesn't work that way, obviously. I mean, sometimes it does, but that doesn't help the student, it doesn't help the teacher, okay? It doesn't help you, that doesn't help your future, okay? If you want to have a good future, there's no way of cheating, okay? If you buy your degrees, which some people do, sooner or later it will come out that you had no idea what you were doing, okay? And if you're a doctor, you can murder people this way. Maybe even unintentionally, but you murder people because they think you have a degree and you just bought the degree only in South America or something for whatever, $1,000. I heard. Sooner or later it comes out that you have no idea what you're doing, right? And then you can also go to prison. You should go to prison if you have done that. If you do this prestige thinking of, you can only think of, if I can buy this diploma, then I can make people think I'm a big shot doctor or surgeon or something, and I can get hired by whatever, a prestigious medical center, right? And then you end up hurting patients, clients. You might even cause death to clients, okay? And it will come out. They will kick you out eventually, or people will find out that you have no idea what you're doing. And so you're not just cheating yourself from a proper education. You're cutting yourself short from a real, genuine education, you're also hurting others in the process. And so this is quite a drastic example, but this happens with all kinds of professions, okay? It happens all over the world, this kind of stuff, where people put, and even those that have studied for 8 years at a university and have gotten pretty good grades and all of that, or diploma, and they have diploma psychologists hanging on their wall. Even those people, if they can only think about later on, they study this kind of like mindlessly, because their mind is always on their prestige, and then once they're done, they forget what they have learned very quickly, because they have just mindlessly studied it, memorized it, and it didn't really anchor itself into the brain, because it was just memorized, right? That's another way of cheating yourself and others with your studies and with your profession. Okay? That's the truth. In order to, and all of this is based on lies, self-deception, deception of others. And if we live in a society that is based around something like this, how can that society function? Okay, so, and that's what I see. I see the big picture of all of that. I think about it all the time. I think about how people put prestige over most things. What is prestige? That is constantly thinking about what other people are thinking of them, constantly wanting to be shining the brightest, even if it's based on lies. And they will be fixated on this, and the brain will be completely crowded with that, and crowds everything else out. It crowds out logic, it crowds out mindfulness, it crowds out compassion. Okay? And that's the worst of all. That's really the absolute worst of all. When thinking about what other people think of you makes you not compassionate. So, I'm a loner, and it takes courage to be a loner. It really does. It takes courage to be a clown also. It takes a lot of courage. My goodness. Okay. It takes courage to stand alone, and I am the way I am. If a realtor comes here and Paul does something really bad, I have to scold Paul in front of the realtor. And if that pisses the realtor off, or if the realtor finds that somehow low class or dysfunctional or whatever they're thinking, I don't care. Okay? It doesn't feel too good that this happened in front of the realtor. But if I have to say something to Paul, that he's hurling his hiking pole around and accidentally hitting against the baby dog's back or foot or whatever, then I have to speak out. I have to say something. I can't be worried about what that realtor is thinking in that moment. Okay? I can't let Paul do this. I mean, I learned now. So when a realtor comes over, I have to put the baby dog on the harness, and I have to hold him on the leash. That's all there is to it. And I have to keep a distance. And Paul, if he doesn't want to keep a distance to the realtor, I find that wrong. But if he just can't keep a distance to the realtor because he's hard of hearing, and because he's always, when he talks, he does violent hand movements, not just hand movements, not just like this here. No, it's like karate movements, literally, okay? And if he has a hiking pole in his hand, that's not good. So I have to keep the baby dog away from him because his mind, when he talks to someone, and it's not intentional, it's just he gets so completely on a mental train of trying to, he's always in this, when he's talking to someone, he's in this mental state of trying to coerce, of trying to convince and persuade. It wouldn't matter who it is. It could be the realtor or an electrician or a police officer. It wouldn't matter who the person is. Or he goes shopping and it is a store clerk and he's paying at the register. And he will get into a coercive, persuasive draw with that person. This is a case for Dr. Oliver Sacks, who was a neurologist. He's no longer here, but this would have been a good case. When Dr. Sacks was still alive, I kept saying to Paul, this is a case for Dr. Oliver Sacks, and he had no idea what I'm talking about. And he was also not interested. He would never even ask, who is Dr. Oliver Sacks? I guess he already suspected that this was not going to be feeling so good if I told him who Dr. Oliver Sacks is, right? So he had cases of clients with age dementia and stuff like this, where he even wrote a book about this with the title The Man Who Mistook His Hat for His Wife. So, and those kind of things do happen. And I just so hope so much that we're not heading in that direction with Paul. Okay, that's all I can say. I pray to the blue God, because I told Paul many times, I got my own issues. Okay, I have mental illness. I have vulnerability. I get very easily overwhelmed with situations that are demanding my attention and my attendance. And I am not a nurse, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not even a psychologist, but that more than the other. But he wouldn't even, if I say anything in regards to psychology or trying to help him, he becomes defensive. So he's he's not just the man who mistakes his hat for his wife. That guy I could have dealt with. But someone who is difficult and very problematic neurologically, that's a bad combination. That is really not for everybody. I would say it is really not for anyone, but there are some rare phenomenal people who had a good childhood and a very stable mind, who don't mind talking extremely loud to an elderly person. And if that was the only thing, then, and the elderly person would talk loud and it's just out of not hearing, but that's not the case with him. He blames it on that, but that's not the case with him. He yells at me. He yells at me in a very vicious way. You know, like you have seen Bernie Sanders yell in public places. That is how his voice is, okay? That's how it sounds. Like, I don't want to imitate it, but, you know, look up Bernie Sanders screaming, okay? And then you get an idea. And that's how he talks to me. He constantly feels wronged. Bernie Sanders feels wronged for some good Samaritan cutting off his illegal money flow that comes to his bank account. Okay, so that's also a bit pathology. Yeah, for sure, okay? And it doesn't get better with old age, of course, you know. And even if these people would never even get to spend their money, they still want more. They want your tax money. But that will lead us to another discussion. I'm going to stick with psychology and the pathology of just difficult people right now, and with this constant need to look good to the public. He has that too, but the other pathologies of persuading people and all of this, which does not look good at all to anyone. But that is more powerful than his fear of social perceptions of him. So, and of course, that will, if you are married to someone like this, you will not have a human friend that will come over once in a while. We still had that in LA, but those people, they were like Nicola. In the beginning, he is kind of like goofy, charming, but when he becomes belligerent and proselytizing and preaching and lecturing, particularly in an angry, forceful way, that's when they go. That's when. Thank you. Have a good night. I am heading out the door. And I'll say, I don't blame you. So sorry this happened again. And it was not easy. By the time we left LA, that's when we had no more friends. And then we had a few friends at the other, where we have the other house. And this is a more crowded area there. And I had an artist friend, and she was really good friend. And I also had an animal lover friend. The artist friend was also loved animals, but she was not an activist. Thought the other one was more an activist. But the artist friend moved away, and the activist friend hung up the phone in 2013 when I told her that those video series of zombies and mermaids was fake. She didn't like them. She wanted to believe that it's real, and I think I should probably let her believe it and not argued with her. Okay. So I argued, but that has also to do with the nervous breakdown that I had been just through. Okay, coming into 2013, and I thought that in October 2012, I thought the world was coming down, which a lot of people thought. Okay, and that this is really not good to spread something like this. Particularly not good for sensitive people like myself, who are already suffering a lot, and a lot of things were happening. They were rounding up wild horses. That was bothering me so much. I can't even explain how much that was bothering me, because I have met 2 teenage wild horses near Reno, Nevada, okay? And that we went out there to a prairie in the desert, and we parked there, and it was very, very beautiful. And that was with our former dog Samantha in the motorhome. And I had 1 apple left. And I went out there, and I kind of squatted down, made myself shorter, because they're very nervous. And I don't blame them, okay? So, but the whole herd came over looking at me, and I talked very sweet to them. And 2 teenage boys dared to come forward and checked me out. And they smelled on me and on my hand and on the apple. And then the bravest one took a bite from the apple. And then he ate half of the apple in 1 bite, and then I gave the other half to the other horse. And they were nodding and liking that and very appreciative. And I stayed there with them for a while, talking very sweet. And then they went back to Mama and Papa, okay, and to the brothers and sisters. And then the whole herd was walking into the other direction, which that was the direction they wanted to go. And all of a sudden, a couple, an older couple, drives up with squeaking wheels because they saw the herd of wild horses. Oh, the wild horses! Squeaking wheels like in a movie, putting the brakes on, getting out with the cameras, talking loud, boisterous. And what happens? The horses ran. They didn't even get to take any good photos. Okay, so, and I felt really, really bad, that these people had to come there with their city energy and with their impatience and all of that. And then, and that was when we met the wild horses, that was in 2005, in around April 2005. And then lots of things happened. We bought the other house and then this house, and then in 2012, towards the end of 2012, the Bureau of Land Management under Barack Obama, under a vested interest person that Barack Obama brought in, vested interest from the cattle ranching industry that he hired for the Department of Agriculture, and which is all unbelievably criminal and corrupt. I hold both of them accountable for this, and this guy, Ken Salazar, I think was his name, he had the wild horses rounded up on a massive scale. And when I saw that, and I saw video clips of the wild horses being captured in these round enclosures that are just as big as basically 2 rooms or something, for wild horses that are used to roaming around for miles and miles and miles, for them it was unimaginable panic. And they were constantly jumping up and down for hours, jumping up and down, and they couldn't get over that very high enclosure fence that they were surrounded with, and just jumping up and down in total panic. And captured dolphins and whales do the same thing. Okay, all of this is unimaginable cruelty, and that should be outlawed, to round up wild horses. It added to my nervous breakdown coming up. Okay, all of this added to it, and then other horrible atrocities that happened in factory farms and with cows and pigs, and the Mother Teresa dog, Puppy Doe. That case, all of that was happening that year. Okay, that was a real serious energy vortex of unimaginable proportions, and a sensitive person like myself, highly sensitive indigo, would break from that. Absolutely, it was just too much. Okay, and then in October I could feel it snap. It didn't take much to snap it. Okay? I saw the atrocity that is also done in Hollywood, with Hollywood movies, and I saw right through a video clip of a movie that I saw the whole thing, I'm psychic, and sometimes, and also when I'm in a situation where my mind is already very, very on edge, then all of a sudden I see a video clip from a movie or something, and all of a sudden I see the entire picture of what's going on with underground bioweapon labs, underground bio experimentation labs, experimenting on animals and humans. I saw the whole picture, but deep underground. Okay? Underground, where most people have no idea what's going on. I saw the whole thing. I saw the Dr. Mengeles of today, and I call them Dr. Mengele. Dr. Mengele is probably paling in comparison to those people. So, and sometimes the movie industry, with their callous horror movies, they will leak something out that is actually happening. And it's what David Icke said, that you can't even wrap your head around the horrors that are happening in the world. And he said that the horror movies don't even come anywhere in the margin of this. Okay, that he said that the absurdness and horror of reality in some places on Earth is wilder and crazier and more brutal than any fairy tale story or movie has ever depicted or has ever fictionally invented. Okay. Reality is much worse than fiction. Okay. And I knew this. I could see this. I can see this with my inner vision. Okay. I can see these kind of things. And I know it's true, I know this is not a hallucination or delusion. I know this is happening. And then later on I see videos where people with masks and distorted voices will speak out about it. People who have seen this stuff, people who have escaped this alive and were able to talk about it. Most people don't even, once they see something like this, they will be held there because the cabal people won't even let them out because they're afraid that they will blow the whistle. So it is there, but I also want to say that there are good people too in this world. There are angels and gods and indigos and light workers too. Okay, there are people that are even students of life. There are people that are trying, that want to learn. Okay, so I think Chris Cuomo is a student of life. So that's my impression that I'm getting from him, which is the second soul level. It's not the beginner soul. This is already a soul level one above the beginner soul. So, student of life, someone who has already seen stuff, and someone who's already learned something, and someone who will be reminded on an unconscious level when he experiences some corruption, but it takes a certain corruption level where this inner memory comes up and says, oh yeah, not in a conscious, not in a crystal clear, consciously aware way, but in an unconscious way where he knows this doesn't feel good, this is not right. Okay, so then he may have said something while he was working for CNN. He may have said something like, this is not right, or he may have said something like, oh, I question this, or let's not. I'm not gonna take it any further than this. Okay, like with the interrogation of politicians and stuff like that. And the cabal, when they see someone question themselves and their actions, they will kick them out. Okay, and that's what happened. That's a compliment. Okay, it is not. It's not some kind of loss. Okay, it's not some kind of being discredited or being looked down on or being falling from grace. It's exactly the opposite. Okay, so that is a sign of moving forward. Okay, when you get kicked out, you have said something good. Okay, so that is what it is. That's what's going on. Okay, that's the truth, what I'm saying. So the light is getting pretty dim. The sun is going down. but I still want to say something about this terrible fear that people have of social rejection. So not just in regards to people getting kicked out of their jobs. That is another subject, but it kind of also gradually ties in with the fear of social rejection, of course, on different levels. But fear of just losing the job, that is one thing. But again, you have to speak out when you see injustice, and even if it gets you kicked out. Okay, you can pat yourself on the shoulder and say, "Oh, I said something good. I criticized something that was not done right." And when they kick you out for that, this is, first of all, that's censorship, and that's tyrannical. And then you just know, okay, so you call them out on something that they were not doing right. Who knows what else they are doing wrong, okay? You may only see a fraction, a sliver of it. So be glad they kicked you out. Or I recommend that you also leave, okay? So if you work for something Kabbalistic or corporate agenda mafia, leave right now, because this is not going anywhere. It's not making your life better. It's not making the world better. Don't cater with your physical and mental efforts or your money to a cycle of suffering. Don't do it anymore. Okay, that's my recommendation. So, but in regards to people where it's not about a job, or it's not about some kind of career opportunity even, but again, that also don't put your career opportunity above the wellness and the safety of children and animals. So very important to say that, very important. But even if it's not about a career opportunity or job or whatever, or trying to impress someone, it could be you trying to impress a girlfriend or whatever, okay? Don't feel dependent. Watch yourself about this. Don't feel dependent on what this other person says. Like me yesterday scolding Paul in front of the realtor. I know this is, for most people in society, this is something so yeah, and I can tell the society she comes from, she would get beaten if she questioned her husband or something. So, which is unacceptable. Okay, so anyone who lives with a violent or tyrannical husband, leave right now. Okay, this is not making your life well. You deserve better. Absolutely. So, but then then I could feel this. The criticism. It was in the air. I can feel it from her, emanating from her towards me. A criticism. How can you? Who are you to make such a fuss and drama? I will make a fuss when my husband accidentally hits the baby dog, okay, with the hiking pole. It doesn't matter whether it's accidental or deliberate. I mean, deliberate is, of course, a whole lot worse. But even if it's accidental, he might do it another time. Or the baby dog runs up to someone and they want to close their car door, and baby dog is in between the car door. Okay, I have to speak out and say, "Let me get the baby dog before you close your car door." And it wouldn't matter who it is. It could be the Pope, a realtor. It wouldn't matter who that is who comes to this parking lot and opens their car door. If the baby dog is in there and trying to smell their animals or whatever, that the animal particles that are in their car, then I have to get the baby dog out of there before they close that car door. It's just logical, right? And I can't worry about what these other people are thinking. I might be chasing them away, yes. They may not buy the house just because of that, yes. Okay. My dog is more important than selling the house. And that's a fact. That's the truth. Okay? So we have to get our priorities straightened out. Where is the priority in existence? With love and compassion, with the safety and well-being of all beings. That's the priority. If I am, let's just use a stupid example. I am in a wedding gown, all just fixed up and everything, before the photos even were taken. And I walk down there like a princess, and I am about to meet my Prince Charming there, and we are getting married, right? And I walk through a garden, and there is a pond. And a hedgehog. A hedgehog fell into the pond. Or let's say that's a swimming pool, and the hedgehog. This actually happened to me before. Not with the wedding gown, but it happened in Germany. There was a hedgehog that had fallen into a swimming pool that was at some kind of decorative fountain pool with rounded sides of a tiled pool where the hedgehog could not get out from. There was nothing to grab onto him. He must have been thirsty. It was in the summertime, and he wanted to drink water, and he plummeted into the pool, and he couldn't get back out. And Norbert and I, we walk there, just in the nick of time before that animal drowned. Okay, and I hear this buzzing sound, like bzz, 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 bzz. I look. Oh my gosh, there's an animal in the pool and swimming in circles in a panic. And so he had a bag from Peru around his shoulder, and we took the contents out, and I held this bag from Peru just above the water surface, held it over like that, and I said, "Come on, Eagly." I call him, they're called Eagle, but spelled differently. So Eagle is the hedgehog, and they live in Germany, and I held this bag over there, and the hedgehog, without thinking, came right over and climbed onto that bag from Peru and trusted me 100%. Okay, that was very strange, because if he had not done that, I would have gone into that pool and rescued that hedgehog. Or even taking the risk of being stabbed with the needles and all that. They're not porcupine, they don't shoot needles out. They're just very needly, okay? And they roll up into a ball as a protection with needles as hair. And this hedgehog trusted me so much that he reminded me of my guinea pigs. He was so infinitely grateful for this event that I rescued him with this bag. He never curled into a ball. He was as long as an accordion. I lifted him up with this bag around him, and the hedgehog was so grateful that he became almost like a boa constrictor, so long, like 2 feet long almost, and was nuzzling my neck with his wet hedgehog nose, like a dog nose. So grateful. He was saying, thank you, Nicola, thank you, Nicola. I can't thank you enough. And then we kept hiking, me holding this hedgehog in this bag like a baby, and hiking like this. And then I thought after a while, well, the hedgehog probably needs to rest now, and there were some, like they call them Schrebergärten, that's like people that can't afford a house with a garden, they can buy these little log cabins with a little garden, and they're relatively cheap, and there's a whole colony of those. And we walked past the colony, and they had pretty low sitting fence, and I thought, oh, I see there's a nice kept vegetable garden. Why don't I just let Eagly into this vegetable garden? And I lifted him on the bag over the fence, and then gently put the fence on the ground, put the bag on the ground, and the hedgehog walked into that Garden Eden. I hope they don't use pesticides. So, and I hope they had some kind of little, like some kind of maybe a pond, but one where he can get back out. With a pond that's a natural pond that has dirt and earth and grass and all of this, where you can get back out. So I couldn't see all of that. It was also getting dark, and the hedgehog needed a home, so that's where I left the hedgehog, and it felt so good rescuing the hedgehog. Felt good to both of us, Norbert and me. That was a good experience. Okay, so I would also do this in a wedding gown, which I would not just probably, I would never do a wedding gown. I don't believe in marriage. I don't believe in wedding gowns. I'm an artist. I'm a hippie. I like everything natural, and I don't like any of these religious type of ceremonies and stuff like this. I don't believe in it. I believe in open relationships. I believe in real, genuine friendships, and they can form in many different ways. I mean, you can be a sugar baby, and it's perfectly fine. And if you are into open relationships, then you give that other person unlimited space. So, as long as he treats you well. So, or if you find a rough school daddy, like I did. Okay, so it's perfectly fine, and we're not together anymore. We're just friends. But yeah, that's what I believe in. I believe in real friendships, and this friendship to Paul, even though it's extremely difficult, and I am in despair sometimes, and I made videos about this. But he cares about me. He would rescue me any time from falling into a swimming pool or into a difficult situation. He would do anything he could to rescue me, and vice versa. Okay, and that's real friendship. So, but anyway, let's just use this as an example. I had just put on an expensive Versace wedding gown, and everything is done perfectly. And there is a hedgehog in a pool, and if I don't have a bag from Peru to offer, then I would go into that pool with the wedding gown and and rescue that hedgehog, and use the wheel of the skirt to wrap around the hedgehog, and then the hedgehog the needles would probably puncture the fabric, and it doesn't matter. What matters is you rescue the hedgehog, or a puppy, or any living being, child, kitten, any living being. You can't just walk past a living being that is in distress and needs to be rescued. You can't just walk past that and say, oh, let's move on with my wedding or something, or ignore that being that is being tortured, or that is in agony, or that is whatever is going on, drowning, or in a fire, or something, right? Or you get a message on the phone, it's buzzing in your wedding gown, and you go, one moment, and then there's a message, whatever, some kind of Hiob's message or something, yeah. and you have to call everything off. You take the wedding gown off and get in the car and do what you can to save whoever is in this extreme need, who's needing your particular help. Or the FBI comes to your wedding and says, call everything off before the photos are taken. This is the FBI. We need you, the bride. You need you come with us, and you need to identify some suspect. I would do it. Okay, so put the priorities before. Put the rescuing of a living being before anything else, before any of these other vain things or ceremonies or whatever. Rescue a living being. And the same goes for any kind of cult or religion or devil worshippers, Satanists, or whatever it is, Islam. It doesn't matter what cult you're involved in. And it doesn't matter how much you want their approval. Okay, when they are about to sacrifice a child, a newborn, I've heard it all, or an animal, or any being, step in and do the best you can to rescue that living being. Even if this is risky for you, do it. Peace and love for all living beings.